A very good afternoon to all of you, and to this session on how do you make fashion great with people. And if there is any example of VUCA, agility, and this is it, because I was not the one who was supposed to moderate the session, and a moderator is still coming on the way. So you need to bear with me. So I will do the moderation till the time he arrives. So we're waiting for Shailesh to arrive, but I have with me some wonderful co-panelists today. So Dhiraj from Sutra, and Satyen from Celio, and Abhishek from Agilitas. Okay, so maybe a quick introduction to what you do. So maybe that will be a good way to start.
So I'm Dhiraj from Sutra. We started Sutra about 8 years back. Started very small. As I say this often, we started from a 400 square feet office in a building which was haunted. From there, we have built one of the biggest D2C setup, spanning online, offline. We are the only fashion brand to be in 22 countries. It's a everyday drill, and very excited to be here.
My name is Abhishek Ganguly. I've been in the fashion sportswear industry for the last couple of decades. I was with Puma till about 6 months back. Started my own venture. It's called Agilitas. It's a sportswear platform, right from manufacturing to brands which we are going to launch, and also retail. Great to see you guys.
Satyen from Celio. Joined Celio on a transformation assignment about 7 years back. Prior to that, with Levi's for 9 years, and consumer electronics, LG Electronics, and Hutch Vodafone. That's Satyen.
So my name is Swadesh, and I head the people function for Titan. Been in the people function for more than 3 decades, having worked with organizations in manufacturing and consumer company like Tata Steel, Coke, even in healthcare companies like Merck and Boston Scientific, and been in Titan for the last 3 years. So I will do the moderation till the time our moderator arrives. So please bear with me, as I mentioned. And this is a classic example. We thought that, and on the fly, we thought that we will just have this conversation going, right? So, and this is my first question maybe to Satyen. So Satyen, we see the consumer preferences are changing, right? So the way the consumer is buying today has also undergone a change. And there is a lot of a digital which we see happening in almost every sector, and retail is no different. Then how do you build that digital adoption in your employees? So, because end of the day, it's the same people who are serving the consumers.
No, I think my experience here has been, so it's not investment, it's not actually anything which is a barrier or anything for technology adoption, but it's actually the people, culture, and the mindset. So we set up a digital blueprint about 5 years back, 5.5 years back, and we said we divided it into 2 functions, some consumer-facing, some not consumer-facing actions. And we said, how do we really get people to embrace on technology, not technology for the sake of technology, but technology which can actually help them to really solve the bottlenecks which they face? How can it really help them do better productivity, save on their time, do more creative stuff? And I think that's where, so it's not been easy. Honestly, it's not been easy to really get people to embrace to digital. But I think, honestly, for me, if I look at in the last 6 to 8 months, what's really even happening, so one COVID, we really saw what happened with the e-commerce boom and how we really had to be open to change and agility and mindset change. But now what really is happening, I think from 12 months from now, when we sit in the next IFF, we would have experienced a big change with what's happening with generative AI. And I think what it's doing, it's like, for me, it's like a genie is out of the bottle. And how do you really get people to, for function by function, how do you start embracing that and start using it in your day to, whichever function you want to really use it, and use it to help you to free up your time to think more creative and give it. So we've started to use it in some of our marketing function. I think the consumer engagement is already really right. So for me, the people culture change happens when they start experiencing the benefit they are seeing from what technology is helping and aiding. So I think that's where the starting point of getting that mindset shift and getting that adaptiveness, openness to adapting to technology is starting to help.
So MS Dhoni has arrived and you have to give the captaincy back to him.
So I will give the seat to the captain.
I was told 4:30 I came on time. You guys started early.
So in your absence, I just took over the mantle, Shailesh. So,
Thank you.
so, no, I was asking the same question, saying that like the consumer preferences is changing. So how you are ensuring that digital adoption happens at an employee level? Maybe would like to listen from you.
I think the age of the employees is so young that they are all digital savvy. I think we are a little older, so we are a little worried about digital adoption. But you ask a 25-year-old employee, they are already fairly digitally adopted. And today, look at 12 years old and a 13 years old. They've solved this problem. We don't have to do anything. It's already there.
So any points from you, Abhishek?
I would just probably reiterate what Satyen said, that digital adoption, not for the sake of adopting something, but if it is about solving a problem, and that has to be done in the most efficient way, and that's where technology comes into place. So if the priorities of how, if you're in a consumer business, how are you impacting the consumer in the best possible way, and technology being a tool, and then building a set of team and culture around that is the way to be. When you say digital adoption, it sometimes seems like, people have to be transformed. And if people have to be transformed, then that's a different challenge altogether. So we saw this during COVID, that a lot of companies which had to do this digital adoption through transformation had a big challenge because they had to completely change their DNA and outlook to how they operate business. But companies which are already thinking of solving for the consumer using technology in the most efficient way were the companies that really did well.
See, if you look at talent, there are some broad competencies. Now, if you say that in industry we want fact-based decision making, or we say analytical skills, then if you look at that broad picture that we want industry to be very scientific, must have a scientific temper or fact-based decision making or decision which are based on data, facts, then that's a bigger agenda. That, every time there'll be some buzzwords and, the flavor of the month, and they'll keep coming up and going down. But I think as an industry, we should say we will focus on larger issues. We want empathy, or we want scientific temper, or we want hard work, or, people oriented. I think somewhere the talent base has to be based on broader points. And some of the things that we are talking about, digital adaptation, if it is means to end to get to a scientific temper or to a decision making which is based on data, then I understand. Otherwise, in 3 years from now, there'll be something else. And 4 years from now, it'll be something else. But I think the moot 4 or 5 competencies that we want to build, and I give an example. I got a boss who was from FMCG industry, and his business, he was from levers. And they had, let's say, Lux soap. Now, Lux didn't change. Lux had one SKU, and once in a while they increased size to give a consumer offer, and the technology came from abroad. The product was very stable. Now you come in fashion industry, every shirt has a different collar, has a different weight of the fabric, has a sleeve detail different, button different detail, the shape of the cuff is different, and the pocket is, every style code is more or less, has such high level of variability. Now, that gentleman really struggled to manage this level of variability. Now, we have to acknowledge that maybe this business has very large variability on product. Then we need to figure out a competence that people are comfortable with high degree of variability and still able to take decision when the base is very large or is varying, right? Then what are the competencies you need to be on top of a business which has very large variability to start with? So, those are some of the points that we should figure out. If you want to, if you want a fashion business to become great again, then you need competencies which will fuel those behavior, and the tools will come and go. I don't want to worry too much about the tools, etc. But I think the larger characteristic of human beings or the talent will be very important.
So a little different question to you, Dhiraj. And so there is one talent pool, and there are many takers today. Okay. So how do you, from your viewpoint, from an organization, what are the couple of things which you have done to attract talent for your organization?
So I think there are 2 points here, right? And I would like to add to the previous point as well, right? Especially because we are a brand which has been born out of the digital revolution. We believe whenever the market is shaken, that's when new brands are born. So you had the EBO revolution, you had the LFS revolution. We are the brand which was born out of the digital revolution, right? So for me in fashion, if you have to really grow a scalable business, creating a small business in fashion is the easiest thing to do. किसी को यदि 20, 25, 50 करोड़ का business बनाना है तो half smart guy can do it in a couple of years, right? The challenge in fashion business is to build a large business, and that can only be done by technology. So what we kind of follow in our company is break down all the business problems into technology problem. That's like the first step, right? Anything that the business requires, how can you convert it into a technology problem? And then converting a technology problem is very easy for brands like us because that's in our DNA. That's one. Second thing, you're talking about people, and I think one point that we very strongly believe in, right, that retail is not rocket science. In fact, even rocket science is not rocket science. So what you need is people with the right attitude. In our warehouse, we have a lot of people who come from a village that I was born in, and most of those guys even don't know how to write their name, right? We have people from Nepal who don't even know how to speak in Hindi or English. But 6 months into the system, they are doing VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, they are working on Excel, they are working on handheld device, right? So I think the fear of technology is what we have in our mind. We talk about it and we make it like this big monster, right? For today's generation, those youngsters who are in that 18 to 25-year age group, they are more attuned to technology. For them, it comes naturally. You just need to give them the right culture and the environment, and they will pick it up. So we are a very, very firm believer in that you don't need a scientist to work on the technology and retail sector. You need people with the right attitude, you need people who have an open mind to adopting technology.
And my next question is to Satyen. We hear about employee value propositions, which it attracts employees and also goes a long way in retaining your existing employees. So something which you can talk about, what ticks in Celio?
So when I joined Celio about 7 years back, it was a transformation assignment. So I think what it needs when you really want to get, so transformations are not easy. So the grit, determination which you need in people. So the first task was to get the right people in the right seats. So I think key people in key seats starts with that, and then getting the team building exercise. So I think how do you get the team to build together? How do you really get that 5-letter word? It's a 5-letter word called trust, but it's an ongoing process. It just doesn't happen so easy. But once you start getting that trust, and then the silo starts, one function trusts that the other function is doing things which are right. So it's not that if I'm not getting footfalls, marketing is to be blamed. If the product is not doing well, product team is fail. But once you get that one cohesive team feeling, and we've got to win the market and not win within teams, and people start to contribute to the agenda of winning in the marketplace, I think that's the time when you start making that shift. And when you have a clear goal that you've got to win in the marketplace, and winning starts to attract talent, starts to help you retain talent, they're making an influence, playing a role. So in fact, last month, we had our French folks here, and our French HR lady was here, and she just was looking at the attrition rates which we have. And she was very surprised. She said, and I thought in India, attrition rates are very high. But how at Celio India? We have, so I think it's just that for me, it just comes from how do you get, from a leader perspective, from your manager managing people, how do you build that culture of learning, a culture of saying, people not saying we know all, but people with a culture saying we try, we learn, and then these are getting valued. Our suggestions are getting valued. Companies listening to what we say, and then they are acting and implementing. I think it's just that it's a rigorous one because people still go and come, change. So you've got to continue to keep building on that trust factor. But once, for me, nothing breeds better than success. And once you start doing that and people start seeing everyone is rowing the boat in the same one direction, you start to get things right. So I think that's, for me, the mantra is getting the right people in the right seats and then getting the team bonding and that trust going in each other, and then getting that winning momentum going. And that's just helps attract talent and also retain talent.
Any EVP mantra which has worked for you, Abhishek?
People is not a mantra because it's everything. People build culture, culture build businesses. Business is an outcome. People is the journey. And I think that while having the right people and culture in an organization, it's a fish rots in the head, and also it stays. The way to check the freshness of the fish is to check the head. So if it starts from the top, and if that's not right intentioned, then it starts, the right intention at the top, that you are, it's not two policies here or, celebrating Diwali is about culture. It's about really having the right intention at the top, that you will not short charge anybody. You'll not let anybody down. And I think everything about businesses are about that. Because business, like Shailesh said, business environment will change. Business models have to change. They have to evolve. You need to constantly move. And if you have to constantly move, then the constant thing is the people that you have. And the best way to have that is that you have to be well-intentioned. That's the very, very base things. Because businesses will have to navigate ups and downs. But if you have right intentions, then the right things will come and people see through it. Culture cannot be built by just two policies or retention schemes. It is much beyond that. And if that's an organization that one can build, I think businesses will come and organizations will win.
Yeah, very well said. And culture doesn't get built overnight, and it takes years and years of hard work. A lot of values which people need to really display. People need to see those values in action, right? It builds culture. Coming back to you, Shailesh, how do you build a culture and where a high-performing culture, and which has really helped you some of the stuff which you've done in your organization?
The famous saying of Peter Drucker says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? I mean, culture is far more important than strategy, and that's why the culture eats strategy for breakfast. And, I take from what Abhishek just said, it's not about celebrating a Diwali, but I would say what you do on a everyday basis, your routine, your regular interaction, that is what actually, is culture. And a couple of things, what do you do when nobody is watching you? That's culture. And the other extreme is, I read a quote from somebody saying that, what is the worst behavior in the organization you're willing to tolerate? That decides the culture. So, you need to say that this is bullshit, I'm not going to tolerate it. And other side is that every small step you take must have a meaning, etc. So, these are some, issues on culture. But I would say that you look at routine, a regular employee. In my company, I call them Manjunath and Lata. So all my letters I address that, they address to Lata and Manjunath because they are the real employees of the company. And saying, what does Lata or what does Manjunath want to make, in their lives? So today, we all genuinely believe, I personally genuinely believe, and all of us will believe, that everybody wants to live a purposeful life, right? They want to make an impact. They want to make a genuine contribution to the welfare of the organization, of the business, or society. So, and how are we helping Lata and Manjunath to make that impact, to serve that purpose they have in their life? And in that sense, somewhere they would want to feel that they're in charge of their life. So culture has to facilitate some of those things where the Manjunath and the Lata feel that they are in control of their life. They have, flexibility and the freedom to do the right thing, which is purposeful. And sometimes all these SOPs and, rules and regulations and the mustard, card, and it takes away the whole, purpose, and it becomes a routine and, very bureaucratic sense. And culture is about day-to-day things and simple steps you do. I think that's what makes a difference. And I think, we have if you want to call it mantra, then we eventually said we have a formula called CCPP. And, if you've seen old James Bond movies, there used to be a Russian the villain and something, Pravda written on the back, some CCPP at the back of our mind. And I said, yeah, let's, twist it a little wickedly to something more right. So we said, if you are a caring organization, the first C is caring. If you are a caring organization, then it helps people perform and it gives them the confidence. So the care leads to second C is the confidence. And if you feel confident, then you perform. And there's a lot of research says that 30 to 40% of an individual's performance is linked to the environment they work in. If an organization is caring, then you perform well. And if an organization is not caring, then they don't perform well. So care leads to confidence, leads to performance. And then last P is the promotion. Because career growth should be only linked to performance, not to anything else. And that's a culture that it's a result-oriented culture. It's a people-oriented culture. It's a caring organization. And, these are all things. But what you do on a day-to-day basis is what defines a culture.
So very rightly said, if you're talking about a caring organization and keeping people at the center in every decision what you take. And many times we talk about, people as our brand ambassadors, right? And if only an engaged employee and who's really motivated clearly shows in his or her interaction with customers. Many organizations have this listening posts, right? They do this. Some people do annual surveys. Some people do go and meet because there are different channels they use for listening. Because if you exactly want to know what's going on with your people, it's all about listening. So I wanted to ask you this question, Dhiraj. Any unique practices that you have of listening to the people in your organization? And maybe the same question I would like to hear from all of you.
I think in a startup, right, the role of the founder becomes very, very important, right? You can have a lot of these HR jargons, you can have a lot of these processes, but at the end of the day, your associates are looking at you and then deciding what is okay with this organization. It's almost like the parent-child thing, right? You can tell your child not to watch mobile, but if you are on mobile, he will do that, right? In an organization, in the startup stage, maybe even 300, 400 people, at least till the stage that we have seen, you can say anything, you can have any process, but if you are not following it, right, the organization will not follow it. I can come and say something here and impress you guys, and you might think that whatever, but somebody who's working with me knows what I do there day in, day out, right? So it does not matter what I tell him. It matters to him what I am doing, right? So that's the mantra that I follow. As a child, I remember there was this story about Gandhiji where there was a story about Gandhiji and somebody came and told him कि इसको चाय मना है and यदि आप ये चाय पिएगा तो मर जाएगा तो आप इसको समझाइए, right? And that day Gandhiji did not say anything and he said, come back tomorrow, and he kept doing this for like a week. And then after a week, he explained him, and somebody asked Gandhiji, why did you do that? He said, कि मैं चाय पीता था. So if I'm drinking tea, how can I tell the other person not to do it, right? So especially in retail, I think there's a tendency of looking at people as a resource. I think we were having that discussion. We look at them as somebody who was supposed to be there on the counter from 9 to 9, right? We look at them as some kind of robot who is supposed to smile at the customer and do X, Y, Z. But whether can you do it if you are there, right? When you are going to your store, are you picking up the trash? When you are in your warehouse, what are the kind of standards you are setting in, right? So I'm a very, very firm believer that especially in startups where the culture is being defined, the role of the founder in terms of setting up, those standards by actually doing those things are very important.
Yeah. So, and we had this wonderful conversation just before we came into the session about resources, and he was asking me this question, why are you called a chief people officer? And I was telling him when I joined Titan, and having worked for more than 3 decades in human resources, And I hated that term, honestly, because you're actually putting human beings, your employees, in the same category as any resources. Money is a resource, machinery is a resource. Resources are something you can dispense with. You can buy them at your will, you can dispense them at your will. But if you really want to drive a people-centric organization, that's what Shailesh has also mentioned, a caring organization, you need to treat people as people and not as resources. And my wish got fulfilled when I joined Titan 3 years back, and I called myself, my earlier incumbents were all CHROs, and I'm called the Chief People Officer. And coming back to again the listening post, and I was telling him that 90 to 100 hours of actual listening we do every year. The head of the organization and myself, we meet people in pockets. And so that's what I wanted to understand. Any unique practices where you listen to people? Because if you start listening to people, I think a lot of stuff can happen. So maybe Abhishek and then Satyen.
No, I mean, of course, it's a continuous activity and various ways and forms to do it. The more informal, the better. So, in fact, I wanted to ask you, because Titan is such a revered organization, what are the 3 things that you think Titan did well or great with regards to people and their approach to people?
One is I was mentioning, so it takes a huge amount of effort. Like when we meet, we segment the entire organization. Look, if you want to talk to people, one is like you can bring in 1,000 people into one hall and then speak to them. Conversations don't happen. People will not open up and talk speak about what's wrong with the organization. What are the couple of things they want, right? You can drive a good conversation only with 10, 15 people if you want to have a good conversation for an hour-long conversation. And that's what we do. So we segment and cut them into homogeneous groups where people feel comfortable. And I was giving this example. Suppose I want to meet women in manufacturing. I would speak to the younger women in manufacturing. You know, if you bring them into the table, I think you will hear. They will open up better. And we get this point sometimes in the first time we did these conversations, we're getting into the 3rd cycle. So 2 years we did it. And this year, so every employee we speak gets a link to the questions he or she has asked. And we'll be able to see the status of it till the time it is closed. And for the last year, 83% has been all the questions or what are the points we had come. We have managed to give them an answer and we have actioned on them. And when you meet people, for an example, couple of questions, we suddenly realize, and while we knew about it, but then only when you converse, you see the problem. Not all our stores we had a loo. On one side, we were talking about increasing the gender representation. And when we were speaking to the women, and some women very passionately were saying that, and she was almost in tears when we was talking to us, saying that like how she developed UTI because of a loo not being there. So then we mandated, came back. I mean, it just didn't take much effort from our side to mandate that irrespective of howsoever small a format of store would be. You know, store could be even 500, 600 square feet, but then you can always assign a small little place for a loo. You can build a small loo, right? It could be a 3x3 or 4x4 loos. We have seen in aircrafts, small loos can be built. So those, and till the time we actually, I mean, this is a small example, right? And then we realized that like we are mandating all the stores to have sanitary napkins now, right? And I recall one of our customers walking in and saying that, how come, and she was pleasantly surprised to see sanitary napkins being given at the store, and Tani stores, right? So, and all this have come in from our own employees. When you converse and talk to employees, you will get small points, big points. It could be as small point as having a loo, bigger point as like, how do you help me in building my career? So that is one practice. So listening to people has really worked very well for us. What it does in 2 things. One is it drives a listening culture in the organization, right? When the senior other leaders see that the managing director and myself, when we spend so much time in listening to our people, the entire organization also follows that, right? So that is one. Second thing is, it also drives a psychological safety net. You know, people feel comfortable. Even the gardener, the security guard says that I can speak to the managing director. I know him, right? So it is like staying true to the principle of keeping people at the center in everything what we do. So those are the couple of things which has worked in Titan. Maybe I would.
Yeah.
want to hear from Satyen.
No, so we are in the retail business and so very volatile business. So when we see the sale is down, so first we'll go to data and we'll just try to fix this. But so whenever actually you want answers, I think the shop floor is the real place. So when you go interact with consumers, interact with your people, and so it's seldom it's been that I've not got answers. So I think it's just that when you really spend time on the floor with speaking to your people, really empathizing with them. So honestly, one thing which I always believe is it's easiest to raise your voice and shout, but that just doesn't solve the problem. If you really want to understand, and unless you to stand 10 hours on the floor, I think it just, you do that one day, you do that second day, your back pains the third day. So I think it's not easy to do the role with what retail employees do. But I think once you empathize with them and understand what's really this, and then you start getting answers. And I think then we just start getting answers, then start putting your act together, and you see recovery happening. So I think that's what, for me, works, for us at least has worked.
You know, people, managers play a big role, and we have heard this, people don't leave companies because company culture could be great, but then they experience the organization through people managers, okay? And wanted to understand from you, Shailesh, like any practices to build that people management capability in people, because that one person is so important that when he or she has a team, and so how do you uniformly ensure that the people leadership, so one is achieving the numbers. Everybody is chasing numbers, right? Irrespective of whichever function you are in. But there is a responsibility for the team as well, right? How have you seen getting driven?
On the man manager, that's one question. And also I want to go back to the, how do you listen to the employee? I'll come to that also at some point. So, you know, what happens is that we focus a lot on rotation. So, like, for example, I was just talking to somebody when I finished 10 years in my career after my MBA, and I realized that no boss had done more than 2 appraisal of mine that time. What happens is that beyond a point, I said, boss don't matter. I mean, I'm genuinely saying that, you know, because third year will be another boss. Also, the employees or the team should also get rotated. Now, what it does is that they understand then this boss or this subordinate is somewhere ephemeral. You know, it's a passing phase. Then this whole boss doesn't become very important. And as long as you know that I'm with this boss only for 1 year or 2 years, or my role is going to change, or boss's role is going to change for sure, then it gives a lot of comfort to the individual saying, yeah, my life doesn't depend on this individual. That's very, very important. Second point on man manager is access. So we've been very, very open culture. You know, again, I give my example. When I started my career, one of my batchmates said to him, that time CEOs were called president, now everybody is called, you know, certain more fancy title. Then he said that the president to me is a door. I said, what do you mean? He was my batchmate. He says, it's a title on the board of the door, and if I'm walking on the road, and if the president is coming from the side, he won't recognize me. And that somewhere stuck, saying that we need to be accessible, we need to be open. And I've had, you know, boss who used to put on the door D&D, do not disturb. You know, and I said, boss, this is not the kind of culture we want. And today, we really encourage very open culture. Every management trainee meeting, I would personally share my mobile number. I think, well, this is my mobile number. Please call me anytime. And I assure them that before I sleep, I will check all my missed call. I look at every, message come. And not about me. All the top managers would do that. You know, we'll ensure. So, you know, maybe 20 of the top managers make sure that everybody responds to their messages, missed call, same day. Now, that access also reduces the, you know, the whole boss thing that in their mind. So as long as they all see that boss, one individual is not so important, and there's a larger sort of force, I think, then it gets solved in some sense. Coming back to the earlier question, I had some views on how do you listen to the employees, etc. So, once I asked an ad agency, O&M, Ogilvy and Mather, they were our ad agency. I said, in creative field, how do you measure performance? He says, yes, we have a very global system, point system, this system, but we go by the noise factor. I think, we look in the office where the maximum noise is coming from. The happy teams are very noisy teams. It's saying that we know that which team is more, there's a banter there, there's a leg pulling there are jokes happening, there is masti happening. I think we know that that team is happy. You can listen to the noise factor, from there you can figure out where this thing. Second point is that you can do mystery shopping, you can do the Gallup survey, whatever you can do. But, I can give you a simple example that we were doing some work with a licensee and, he's saying, who's your customer of your brand? Then they wanted to make belt and wallet for us. And we gave them a lot of document and brand map. He said, kuch samajh mein nahi aa raha hai. And then, he said, I'll go to your store. So I'm going to rush up a little bit. And he took the picture of our customer at the store. And in 2 days, he said, I understand your customer. I'll be able to make belt and wallet for you. So, the real essence, when you see the white of eye of the customer is very important. In my company, we have a building which we have around 10 floors. And the lift where people are waiting to get in or come out is very important. We have the CCTV. I always say, just look at the picture there. People who are waiting to get into the lift and people who are coming out of the lift. Both pictures are available. I think just see those pictures over a period of time. You know whether employees are happy or not. You know where they're looking a little gloomy or they're happy and they're having masti. And over a period of time, you want a younger team or a more balanced, diverse team. You can see all that from that CCTV at the elevator when people are waiting. And that gives you a lot of sense on whether people are happy or unhappy.
So thank you so much.
And Arvind, everyone's smiling in front of the elevator.
No.
Shailesh dekh raha hai.
First time I'm sharing this. From tomorrow onwards, yes.
So thank you so much. I wish we had more time to speak about people, and such a pleasure speaking with all of you. I will just end with a Chinese saying, and pardon me for borrowing a Chinese saying, and because everything is Chinese nowadays, right? So there was a beautiful saying which really touches about people, what I've heard, and one is, if you want years of prosperity, grow corn. If you want years of prosperity, grow corn. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. But if you want a lifetime of prosperity, invest and develop people. So thank you very much. You've been such a wonderful audience, and thank you to my panel members.